Hello and welcome to TAL Radio. At TAL, we connect those who are willing to give to those who are in need. And giving is not an easy thing. You are listening to a beautiful series and actually watching also to a very beautiful series called Mindfulness. Remember, you have to be mindful of a lot of things around you. And this is a very beautiful year, in fact, to start because it's the starting of the year, a very beautiful time to actually think a little bit more about mindfulness and, of course, to dive more into it. You must have heard of these amazing words from your childhood: wisdom and knowledge. And there's nobody else better than Dr. Sampath to explain what is wisdom and what is knowledge. So let's welcome Dr. Sampath. Dr. Sampath, once again, a very warm welcome to TAL Radio.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you, and a happy new year to you. Yes, the subject is very exciting. Uh, Knowledge and wisdom, they are two different things, and each one has their own perspective about it. And it's a good subject to explore starting 2025.
And I remember when we were discussing about it, you were like, this is my favorite subject. I can talk for hours on wisdom and knowledge. So over to you. So, Dr. Sampath, how would you define knowledge and wisdom? Because for a layman, somebody like me, for me, both are the same. But are they really same?
To me, they are not the same. Knowledge is knowing something, wisdom is having deep insight into it and being able to integrate that into one's life and making meaningful decisions out of it. Uh, if I'm to give you an example, let me try and make you understand or make our listeners understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. So there's this young man who wanted to acquire the knowledge of attaining moksha. So he went to a master and said, "Master, I don't know how to achieve moksha. Please give me the knowledge." And those days, teachers were very, very wise people. So they examined the student and they found him not yet ready for that kind of knowledge. So the master said, "Go do this, chanting for next 6 months, come back." Again, he came, not ready, 3 months, 6 months, 5 months, 4 months, like this. 10 years went by, but the student was persistent and he continued to do whatever the master asked him to do. So one morning, the master had asked him to come around 4 a.m., Brahma Muhurt, and the guy was there knocking at the door and it was pouring cats and dogs. And he was completely drenched. So when the master opened the door, he saw him completely drenched and gave him a towel to wipe himself. And he took pity and said, "Let me give him the knowledge today so that he will at least reap the benefit of 10 years of hard work." So he called him in after the regular prayer. He told him in his ears, "The secret of achieving moksha is neki kar kuein mein dal. Do good and throw it in the well." The guy was so excited and wondered why, for such simple knowledge, my master took so many years to give it to me. And then the master gave him breakfast. And by the time he left, took the blessings of the master and left, it was 9 o'clock and he was returning home and he had to cross a busy street. Just when he was trying to cross the street, he found an old woman struggling to cross the street. He held her by hand, helped her to cross the street, found a well nearby, threw her into it. So the old lady got moksha, and here is our man. So what was missing is somewhere our man who was seeking this knowledge for moksha took the knowledge literally, do good and throw it in the well. So he did good and threw it in the well. What was missing is the wisdom behind it, which is don't be attached to anything. Just do good and forget it, and you will attain moksha. Most of us are bound by or get entangled by our attachment to things that we do, and we don't find moksha surely because of the attachment we create with everything that we are associated with. So therefore, to me, knowledge is knowing something. Wisdom is having a deep understanding and insight about it, around it, so that we will be able to use that in our daily life and create something very exciting out of it. So to me, wisdom is much, much richer than knowledge. That's why we say there's a huge difference between knowledgeable people and wise people.
True.
Not all knowledgeable people are wise, but most wise people are knowledgeable. So
That's
I
true.
make a distinction between qualified people and educated people. Qualified people are knowledgeable, educated people are wise.
So, Dr.
Uh,
Sampath, when you mentioned about, that not every person who has knowledge is a wise person because wise persons are really different. So, I remember there's a very famous, there are beautiful tales about a very famous Indian king from South India, Raja Krishna Deva Raya, and one of his courtier, Tenali Ram, Tenali
yeah,
Rama, like they say. So, when you talk about wise people, there are so many people from the history who've really told what being wise is. It's exactly how you narrated in the story of, the monk and his disciple.
right. Many of us don't understand. I think most of us live out of knowledge. Very few of us live out of understanding. And what I mean by that is, you may have a child who is very short tempered, and knowing that is knowledge. But if you understand why the child is short tempered, what makes the child lose his temper, if you really understand, then you will be able to deal with that child better. Many of us operate out of knowledge. Very few of us operate out of wisdom.
True. So moving on, could you please help us understand that, is it possible that one can have knowledge without wisdom and vice versa, like wisdom without knowledge? If yes, then why? And if not, then why not?
You can have knowledge without wisdom. Okay.
Okay.
Mm. So today, machines have knowledge, but I don't think they have wisdom yet. So they can create something which based on what is available. So they go and trace all the AI that we are talking about today. Goes and looks at all the knowledge that is available and puts them together and creates something for us. But wisdom is being able to create new knowledge which is not existing. So, I mean, somebody created gravity. Okay. Somebody further understood gravity and decided how much of payload of fuel is needed for me to launch a rocket into the space. That computation is something that somebody discovered much later because they understood gravity and they went so deep into it. But if somebody was just to stop with knowledge, they would have known knowledge and they would have known the knowledge about gravity and they would have stopped there. They wouldn't have created a new knowledge that would add value to life and its existence. So, therefore, I think you can be knowledgeable without being wise, but the vice versa may not be true. When you are wise, you definitely have a lot of knowledge. So, when you are wise, I talk about in my workshops, which I lead for senior management in the corporates, that in today's world, if you have to survive, you'll have to learn the art of mastering 5 C's. And what are these 5 C's? Ability to connect dots, an ability to correlate them, contextualize, create, and capitalize. And those who are able to do this faster than the others would definitely be leaders in business. And that 5C is much more easier for wise people than knowledgeable people. Knowledgeable people don't necessarily connect and correlate things. They just see knowledge as knowledge. A as A, B as B. They don't look at A plus B is equal to what. So therefore, if you are talking about wise people, they are able to correlate and connect things quickly and contextualize it to where they are and create and capitalize.
Okay. So, you just mentioned about business leaders and that you've been consulting. So, talking about them, you know, I would really like to know, and I'm sure the audience would be curious to know, what plays a more pivotal role, in decision making for business leaders, or it could be any leaders. I mean, leaders in general, you can say. Is it knowledge or it's wisdom?
I think if you want a quality decision, it has to be born out of wisdom. If you want a decision based out of your ego that you are the super boss, then it would be out of knowledge. I mean, we have several examples from the past that I can quote where the Romans try to teach Jesus a lesson, and they ask him to come and punish a woman who has committed adultery. And in those days, the punishment was to publicly stone her, literally to death. So he said, those who have not committed any sin till today in life would be the first to throw a stone at her. And everybody reflects and realizes that they have committed some sin or the other, and no one is able to throw a stone at her. In the process, not only the woman who committed adultery realized, but also those that were to punish her realized. So, therefore, there are many such wise decisions that people take. And I'm just quoting one from the history. I mean, when King Solomon was asked to, when two women go and claim that the child is theirs, so King Solomon says, okay, I'll cut the child and split them into two pieces and give each one piece. The real mother comes crying and says, please don't do that. Let her have the child. And he decides the real mother is the one who doesn't want the child to be cut. So therefore, if you really see, when you're wise, you find a solution. You go to the cause of the issues and you try to figure out what is actually there at the bottom and try to solve the problem at a cost level. When you are knowledgeable, you try to solve the problems at a very symptomic level.
True, very true. And that leads me to in my next question. Knowledge is something we gain. Is wisdom something that we are born with, or can we cultivate it in our daily lives?
Well, again, I do a workshop on how to learn, where I talk about a journey from ignorance to wisdom. And let me share what the journey is. For you to even acquire knowledge, you first need to know that you don't know. I call that the conscious ignorance. I need to be aware that I don't know everything. We all have heard what we know is handful and what needs to be known is oceanful. So the minute we are having conscious ignorance, from conscious ignorance, we move to acquiring knowledge. And once we have knowledge, many knowledgeable people are very keyed up on applying their knowledge. And that's exactly what happens when you apply the knowledge without understanding. You throw the old woman to the well and give her moksha.
True.
Yeah. So from knowledge, we go to understanding. And from understanding, one needs to move towards insights. And from insights, we need to move to wisdom. Now, there are bridges which help us to move from one to the other. What will help me to move from ignorance to knowledge? A basic curiosity or a desire to know. Only when I have desire to know and the curiosity, I will go and acquire the knowledge. Once I
True.
have acquired the knowledge, I need to inquire to understand the knowledge I have gained. And there is a simple tool to understand anything. And this is something that I was at least taught when I was in school, which is 5W1H: why, what, when, where, who, and how. When I try to, I can apply this to gravity. What is gravity? Why gravity is important? Who is creating this gravity? When does gravity show up? Where does gravity show up? How does gravity actually come into being? So, therefore, when I answer these basic questions, I understand the subject. Or what is my child getting angry about? Why does my child get angry? When does she get angry? Who makes her angry? How does she demonstrate her anger? I mean, each child will demonstrate the anger in different way. So, if you have to understand, you have to definitely inquire into the knowledge that you have got. Then, from understanding, if you have to move into insights, you'll have to stay with the knowledge. You'll have to introspect, reflect on it. And when you reflect long enough, or when you stay with the knowledge long enough, we all have heard this story. Some problem has been there bugging you, and suddenly under the shower, a bulb lights up, and you say, wow, that's the solution. And you go and apply
The
it, and it
Eureka moment. Yes, the
yeah,
Eureka
the eureka
moment.
moment.
Yes.
That's because you stayed with the problem long enough. Your mind has been subconsciously working on it, and suddenly you get the solution. So that is the ability of the mind to draw insights from whatever is going on. So you develop insights. And when you apply this insight into real life, wisdom is born. So if you see from ignorance to wisdom, when you stop with knowledge, you operate mindlessly. You just do what you've been told. But when you operate out of insight, I mean, understanding, insight, and wisdom, you operate mindfully. When you stop with knowledge, you are mindless. When you operate out of understanding, insight, and wisdom, you become very mindful in whatever you do. When you're mindless, you look for prescriptive solutions. Just tell me what to do, I will do. When you are mindful, you look at generative solutions. You don't stop with one. You look at what's the next best solution. What is the next best solution? So therefore, are we really being mindful or are we being mindless? Wise people are mindful. Knowledgeable
Wise
people
people,
are
they're
mindful.
certainly mindful, yes. So that takes me to my next question. We all grow, they say the experience teaches a lot. There are people who learn either by committing their own mistakes, or there are other people who actually learn from other mistakes. That's also a very famous saying. So what role does age or experience, it plays in gaining wisdom, and can it be gained with age and experience?
I think many would say age has something to do with wisdom, but I don't necessarily buy that completely. To some extent, maybe. Because you see a little more of life and you think you have some understanding that you can draw from it. But to me, wisdom is being in the present, understanding the context, and our ability to do what is relevant. And wise people are able to do that. And today, the Gen Z, I see a lot of young people being much more wiser than many grown up adults that I have met in my life. So I don't think it is all the time age related. It is one's ability to stay in the present and understand all that is going on and come up with a solution which meets the challenges of the present. So to me, it is one's own orientation and one's own ability to constantly be a learner and come into a situation without any conscious bias.
Dr. Sampath, when we talk about today's world, you were just mentioning the youngsters, the Gen Z, the millennials. So we know we live in a very competitive world. Not just our country, the whole world is very competitive. And everybody wants to settle, be financially independent. For that, you need to work. So when we talk about work, there's a workplace related to it. So in workplace, what do you think, what is valued more? Is it knowledge or it's wisdom?
I think you're asking this question at a most appropriate time. With AI gaining ground, you can be rest assured knowledge is going to become a commodity. I don't think you will need people to come and give you knowledge. Let me give you an example. Today, there are systems which can, I mean, in the olden days, I'm talking about 20 years ago, once you finish law in from a good college, you go and become a junior with a senior lawyer. And what is job given to you? Your job is given the minute there is a case to be fought, go and get me all the case laws. Today, there are softwares which can search and give you all the case laws on any particular case with much more accuracy and give you points to fight the case better than a lawyer, junior lawyer. So, knowledge is going to become commoditized and it's going to be available freely. What is not going to be available freely is the ability to create new knowledge. So, therefore, the world is moving towards wanting more wise people than knowledgeable people because AI has become so knowledgeable that we don't need knowledgeable people. We want more wise people who can keep creating knowledge that the AI will keep using. So that is the a situation that I'm talking about. I think we will see many people losing their job who are doing repetitive tasks. But those who are value adding to what they are doing, they will be the people who will be needed. And they are the people who would actually be wise and can contribute to whatever they are doing. So, therefore, for me, knowledgeable people will lose many things in the AI world.
So, dear listeners, there's a change in the landscape here. If you're knowledgeable, try to be wiser.
Even the we interact with school children and school teachers, and one of the principals the other day was saying that We teachers no more need to share knowledge with students. We need to facilitate their learning rather than give them knowledge. Because knowledge is, I mean, the minute you say something, the student is already going back home and looking at Google or AI and asking it to give why this is important, why this is not important, what the theory behind. So there is knowledge is no more that important as being wise.
As being wise. In fact, the way you just mentioned right now that, if, even teachers are talking about this, that whatever you teach them, it's nothing new because it's something they will get that from many sources today. Your gurus, your teachers are not the only source of information today. There's so much information and everybody is overloaded with it. But to tackle yourself in that so much surrounding of knowledge that you have and to be wiser, to make better decisions, what would you tell to our listeners today?
I would definitely give the following advice or tips to our listeners. I was lucky when I was 23. For some reason, one of my teacher who became my mentor as long as he lived, he guided me. When I was 23, when I was doing my master's, my teacher called me and said, "Go learn meditation." I was
Oh,
23. Without any hesitation, I went and learned transcendental meditation. I practiced it for almost 35 years. Now I practice Vipassana. Every morning I spend an hour plus meditating. And I can, from my personal experience, share that meditation as a practice will help you to be more wiser than knowledgeable. This is my personal experience. It helps you to go deeper. It helps you to look at things more objectively, and it keeps you calm so that you can see without any flutter or without any bias what is actually happening. So therefore, I would say wherever you are, whatever you are, go learn any form of meditation that is in line with your faith, your whatever background. My second advice would be any knowledge that comes to you, please pay attention and work on understanding that knowledge. And once you understand, you will get a better insight about it. And therefore, once you have better insight, you will be able to use it more effectively. So, therefore, operate out of understanding than operating out of sheer knowledge. I mean, you can say, I have a bad boss, but do you really understand who your boss is?
true.
What is making him behave or making her behave the way he or she is behaving? Maybe when you get deeper and understand, you might empathize with that person much better and your relationship can change. So, what changes the relationship is your wisdom, not necessarily your knowledge that you have a boss who is very disruptive or very discouraging. So, therefore, I think it is important to live out of understanding than live out of sheer knowledge. The next important thing I will tell our listeners is learn to learn. I'm not making a mistake by repeating the word. To learn means to put a full stop. When you learn to learn, you learn to live with commas without any full
Pauses. Yeah.
stop. And when you live with comma, you still have a little space for you to understand something, for you to gain more knowledge. But many of us are in a hurry to put a full stop. I do a practice of not using definitive language in my conversations. For the last 5 years, I've been practicing this. So I catch myself when I end up using one of these words and I tell a sorry for having used that word in the conversation that I am engaged in. Some of these definitive words are, oh, he's always like this. Nobody is always like something. He will never change. Everybody will change someday. So never is a very definitive word. Always is a definitive word. This is impossible. Nothing is impossible. Impossible is a definitive word. The minute you use these words, your mind shuts up. It stops reflecting on any of those things. If you say this person will never change, that minute you give up every effort you put in to help that person change. If you say this is not going to be possible, you stop putting any effort to make it possible. So it is important to stop using these definitive words in our language so that we still create some open space to explore and discover something new as we keep moving forward in life. So these would be some of the suggestions or thoughts I would leave behind for our listeners to think about. And I can guarantee that the days to come are for those who are wise than for those who are knowledgeable.
Lovely, Dr. Sampath. In fact, when you said, stop using these definitive words, all that could come to my mind is, that there's a beautiful saying that the battle is already half won in the mind than on the
Yeah,
ground.
exactly.
So, all right, dear listeners, I'm sure there's so many takeaways for you from this very episode of Mindfulness, where we talked about knowledge and wisdom, the difference between them, and how you can cultivate wisdom in your present life, in your daily routines, in your daily lives, and also what is the future? It's certainly wisdom, as we had, the conclusion of today's discussion. So, Dr. Sampath, if somebody wants to be a little wiser and wants to get connected with you, what is the way to get connected with you?
Yeah, they can write a mail to my mail ID sampath at arpita.com, sampath at arpitha.com. I would also invite them to visit our Instagram page called the Soul Kathas, where we have produced bite-sized videos which are not more than a minute, where we have brought in a number of points in each of those videos. It will be useful for them to get some insights about themselves.
That's how people can get connected with you and be a little bit more wiser, which is certainly the requirement of today and the future also. Lovely talking to you, Dr. Sampath. Thanks a lot for your time. And my dear listeners and lovely audience, keep on watching to Tal Radio. Keep on listening to Tal Radio also. And also, you can listen to this very episode on Spotify, or you can watch us on YouTube, or you can also log on to our website and watch this series called Mindfulness. Thank you so much for watching.